The main purpose of this series of video clips is to introduce people to Ohio's trees. We may eventually get to some shrubs, but I'd also like to cover this plant because it's so common in our woods and many of us have experienced it, and oftentimes that's not a pleasant experience. This is poison ivy. You've heard the adage, if it has 3 leaves, leave it alone, or leaves of 3, leave it be, and a lot of people mistakenly say that poison ivy has 3 leaves. But when you look up at this tree and the vine that's growing under it, the poison ivy plant has many more than 3 leaves. Technically it has many leaves, but each leaf has 3 leaflets. So what it has is compound leaves that have 3 leaflets each. There'll be a short petiole or stalk. That stalk is green right now, but it'll probably turn red on most plants later. And then each stalk has 3 leaflets that join at the tip of that stalk or petiole. The leaves will turn very glossy later in the growing season, and then in the fall they can actually turn a variety of colors from bright reds to yellows, oranges, everything in between. Poison ivy. It'll have buds later in the year. They're tan in color. They're very light tan in color. They're actually what we call naked buds, so they don't have scales or coverings on them. Another thing that characteristic of poison ivy are the fruits. There'll be clusters of fruits at the tip of the twigs. Those fruits will be green this time of year and eventually turn kind of whitish in the fall after the leaves are gone. They're about the size of a BB, and they're actually pretty good food for songbirds and for other wildlife. Another great ID characteristic for poison ivy is that it's a clinging vine. It's not like grapevine that actually grows up as the tree grows up, and typically the vine is not hanging or clinging to the tree, it hangs free. Poison ivy is one of those clinging vines. It's clinging right to the bark of this persimmon tree. It has these very fine aerial roots. They're almost hair-like. They tend to be very dark in color. And the vines can get rather large. I've seen them 4 to 6 inches in diameter. And they'll cling to the tree. They'll typically grow up under a tree canopy, so they don't typically do a lot of damage to a tree or harm it much. It's just the damage or the concerns we have for our health and the rash that it can form. But as far as a wildlife species and some of the fall color, it's really a pretty plant. There's a bit of a close-up of some of that. Those aerial roots, they're kind of lighter color now, but they'll tend to be very dark, clinging roots. And then it can grow in the understory as well and kind of hide out. You can see this newly emergent leaf is still got a little bit of color to it. So be very familiar with poison ivy. It occurs throughout Ohio and it can cause problems, especially that rash, and especially if you're severely allergic to it.